I'm going to shoot for bare minimum a video a month.
Spoiler warning for Stormblood's main story. It's been a minute, sorry. I got a subscription to the hateful game, and then I just kind of fell into a time void. I have a lot of opinions on Final Fantasy XIV's narrative, but like 90% of them are fairly standard takes from what I've seen in a couple different communities. I actually had seen a lot of hype, however, about the main villain of A Realm Reborn 2. I mean, Stormblood. People compared him positively to some villains I adore. People said it was a surprise that Shadowbringer's nemesis could top him, and people even said that he had a pretty fat ass. I mean, those last guys, at least they were right. God damn. After having played all of the game's current main story content and having some more time to ruminate on it, the lesser I think of Xenos as a villain. Part of my issues with him stem from Stormblood's overall lack of focus and dedication to, instead of fleshing out its 4 villains, 2 wars, political intrigue between 2 superpowers and 2 fledgling nations, and giving at least any discernible character traits past vaguely determined for Alamigo, the expansion instead has you do MMO busy work. This expansion suffers a lot in many places for this lack of focus, but nowhere does it suffer harder, in my estimation, than in its villains, and nobody suffers more from this than Xenos. Xenos has no real arc, and neither does the Warrior of Light. He has a big speech going,
"You and I are one and the same."
And the game clearly disagrees, considering that the Dark Knight questline that you might have done immediately prior to this speech refutes it, but the Warrior has no actual chance to oppose this philosophy due to them being a silent protagonist, capable of, at best, 2 or 3 sentences every few quests. His philosophy isn't even a terrible idea in the context of an MMO. Asking questions about gaming's approaches to killing have been done to excellent effect in other genres that aren't as blatantly designed around number go up as MMOs.
Look at this blood! We humans are alive, even if we are assassins. Doesn't matter if it's a video game, movie, drama, anime, manga, we're alive! People shed blood and die. This isn't a game!
The issue lies in that his ideology doesn't really get explored past this. There's the meta aspect, but as a character he's much more a force of nature. He's framed as your true nemesis and rival. A villain like this begs for something deeper to chew on than just,
"I need more power."
Yeah, if you thought I was not gonna compare Xenos to the absolute peak of rival archetypes in gaming just because it's a low-hanging fruit, then you're gonna miss out on this tasty, tasty fruit. Both are framed as akin to the protagonist, but different where it really matters, both what they use their power for, as well as how they react to trauma. Virgil's lust for power is very transparently him trying to exert some measure of control over his life after being powerless to save his family, while Dante comes into power as he understands and accepts his human nature and solidifies his devotion to protecting the rest of humanity. Xenos' lust for power stems from how he wants a bigger number and he gets a stiffy fighting things. The Dark Knight quest implies that the key difference between the Warrior of Light and Xenos is that Xenos entirely dissociates from their actions, treating it all as a game, while the Warrior truly accepts their sins and the blood on their hands. It weighs as it should. This contrast is interesting, but that's about as deep as it gets. Xenos is only really interesting as a character, with the context provided by an optional job quest that requires you to pick up a specific job unlocked in the last expansion that isn't for everybody and leveled up to maximum. And there's still no real justification for his motivation other than he's a piece of shit and wants to murder. The prior human villain, Thordan, had far less screen time than Xenos or the Shadowbringer's villain, and I don't think he's incredible either, but his motivation is clearly understandable. After centuries of status quo, he wants to uphold it and solidify his own legend. Nidhogg's motivation is similarly understandable. After being betrayed, that pain and sorrow is repeated every day for the rest of his life and he goes insane seeking vengeance. Neither are particularly deep, but their motivations, well, exist. Coming back to Virgil, however, the biggest place where Xenos fails as a villain is in the arc that arises from fighting him. If he was simply a force of nature that provided the Warrior of Light a meaningful obstacle, forcing the Warrior to face failure and try and overcome it, that'd still work. Virgil's incredible at providing this antagonistic force to Dante, and while he has some depth, the true value in him is that he provides an easy yardstick to Dante's growth. Dante gains Devil Trigger, Dante gains a renewed purpose, and Dante comes to terms with Virgil, and every bit of character growth he gets makes him that much better at fighting. This is where Xenos' role as a grander scope villain really fails the work. The Warrior of Light is largely unconcerned with Xenos' immediate presence, instead focusing much more on the sorts of gallivanting, heroism, and fetch questing they've been doing since level 1. Their fights show that same progression that Dante and Virgil do, but narratively it's unearned other than maybe Bardam's Medal, the warrior never really seeks training against Xenos. They don't have an arc of their own that gives the fight's narrative weight, and they don't even know what Xenos is up to for 80% of his screen time. The only real justification for why the Warrior of Light is doing better in these fights is that their number is going up, which indirectly proves Xenos' philosophy right after all. Stormblood is messy. Its dungeon and trial design sets a new benchmark for quality that shows a willingness to take what was there in Final Fantasy XIV and push it to the next level, not only demonstrating ambitiousness, but being able to walk the walk after talking the talk. It's just a crying shame that narratively it can't say the same. I'm gonna keep this post-video segment quick because I'm still stinging from the atomic L that this hiatus gave me. More content to come soon, probably. I'm working on another script and it's going well. Last time I said that in a video, I trashed that script though, so I might have jinxed myself. This is bad. I'm done here.